people get tired. You're always looking for new leaders. I'm now the state representative, so things change. I need, as the state representative, I need organized people to be talking about what they want and need, because that's where I can bring some resources. I can't be telling them what they want and need, even though I live here. So that's what we're working on now, is trying to get our neighborhood back to thinking about a vision and what they want and need.
What are the major activities that you have undertaken earlier and now? Major activities and service kind of activities.
Now?
Now?
So Crown Hill Neighborhood Association just went through a couple tough years. And they became a national historic district, which is kind of significant work to be recognized as a national significant historic neighborhood. But that took a lot out of the organization. And so they're almost at a point where they could take a break and maybe dissipate. And so next weekend here, Sarai Rivera, who's the city councilor, and I are going to be pulling this organization together to say, we need you. We need you to keep on with new leaders and maybe some new goals. What's next for Crown Hill? The work isn't done. And we're here as your elected officials to help in any way we can. But if you can't tell us what you want and what you need, then we don't know how to help you, It's like your job to make us do and find the resources. So that's a little bit of the work that's happening right now. Some of that is a glimmer here, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. This group is kept on, but very small and kind of quiet. Frank is still organizing all the churches, but churches, as you know, are struggling too. So it's a hard time, I'd say. Our schools are mostly locked up at 3 o'clock now. Sorry to be depressing.
That's the reality.
So our economy has really kind of hurt things. There are a lot of small businesses along Pleasant Street that are doing pretty good. There's an Iraqi couple that opened a little store over here, like a little convenience store, a year and a half ago, and I was like, oh my goodness, they're never going to survive. There's no parking out front, there's nothing. And they're still there, and I see people going in and out. So, surprised, what works and what doesn't,
One thing that I'm wondering, so you mentioned schools. So part of what we're thinking about, we're in the Lynch School. So how active were they in this organizing? Or were they was this organizing outside of all the schools? And then, or were they actively on the leadership?
So we had most success here. We had a principal and a vice principal that understood when the building is open till 8 o'clock at night, you have a much safer, vibrant neighborhood. Parents like their kids to be at school or at home. So if they can be at school playing basketball after school, that's great, If there's something happening here in the summertime, that's great. So they understood that, the principal and the vice principal, and we were able to do some really, really great things with that partnership. Family Health Center opened up a clinic in the school. And that was because of all these relationships and this trust of we could do this together, So there was that kind of creativity that happened. For the Network Center, our strongest work, I feel, happened around some of the youth work that we did. And we started out with a basketball team that played on the Police Athletic League. And that was a lot of kids that were just who who knows what direction, and there were a couple of them that did go in a not good direction, but a lot of them, and we had them, we worked with them for like maybe 4 or 5 years, and then they in turn took on leadership roles and coached an 8 to 12-year-old team that played in a league that kind of incorporated all these churches. And so through working with those young people, we got to know their parents. We kind of heard about some of the issues in some of the housing complexes or other challenges that they felt like was hurting the neighborhood or making it difficult. We also did a big project around youth employment. So we found teenagers coming to the network center and saying, we can't find summer jobs. Can you help me get a summer job? As our world becomes more corporate, personal relationships don't matter anymore. You go online and fill out an application. So we started going to small businesses. We found money that would actually pay for half of the student's wage during the summer. So a small business could hire someone for $4 an hour, and we'd give them the other $4 back at the end of the summer. So we found like creative ways to sort of keep weaving those relationships. And in talking to teenagers, actually, when we talk about what our mission was, and as the network center, we were talking about our neighborhood, I would say things like, well, we have this idea that the more we know each other as neighbors, the better our neighborhood is, and the safer it is. And they just would look at you and go, yeah, they got it, like that makes sense. And that does something for all of us in terms of belonging somewhere, feeling like, you're in a place that's yours.
So on the other side of Highland Street, you have WPI that almost runs that entire from Main Street to the park. Were they involved? And they even have seeped over Highland Street. I mean, so there's housing, there's student housing, there's,
right. So Elm Park Community School, the assistant principal, went over to WPI and said, could you help us with our summer program? And they said, sure, what can we do? And he said, well, I don't think a lot of our kids know how to swim. And so they said, all right, we're going to open up our pool. We'll supply a lifeguard. We'll even do some swimming lessons. And so they did that for a number of years. So there was one day a week where these kids went over to WPI and used the pool. So.
In terms of.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just overall, I mean, that's a nice gesture, and I know there's a lot of criticism in Worcester of the higher ed institutions in a lot of different ways, in terms of their engagement in the community. But did they have a role at all in terms of trying to develop or redevelop this area?
No. I think the strongest connection we could make was to the school, and that was kind of safe, because it was government kind of institution. At one time this is interesting, with Holy Cross, they were looking to give an orientation to some Holy Cross students to the city of Worcester. Kevin Bean was the pastor here, and I was at the network center, and so we wanted like 3 groups of kids to 2 groups of kids. One was going to start here at Chandler at the school to talk about the school and the challenges there, and then they were going to walk over to the network center, and one was going to start at Elm Park and walk over to All Saints, and then we were all going to come together. So they were going to walk through the neighborhood and come here to All Saints to talk about what they had learned, and Kevin was going to talk about the church and social justice and that mission to neighborhood. And I think they were too nervous to do it. They were like, no, this is too risky. Ooh, Piedmont, the old kind of what do you call it? Reputation starts emerging, and we can't you know, it's too much liability or something. I don't know. It was really too bad because it would have been, I thought it just would have been really great. There's nothing like walking. I'm really sorry we couldn't today,
Yeah,
but like,
yeah.
there's nothing like walking. You don't see the same things if you just, you
Right.
know, drive through. So anyway, I don't know if that's helpful. That's kind
Yeah,
of the
it's-
story that.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
wondering now, what's the spark? So it sounded like around '96, you sort of had these three coalitions come together, and there was sort of this spark of like, wow, we're all kind of working towards the same thing. And then over time, you've said it's sort of built away a little bit. And so
Mhm.
what is the spark now? What's sort of bringing people together, if anything is? I mean,
Well, I have to say, like, electing somebody like me is a great spark. And I don't mean it in any kind of like me kind of way. But honestly, there's a guy who lives down in Piedmont that I've known for a number of years, lives on Challenge Street, great family. They're from Dominican Republic. And one said to me after my election, he said, Mary, he said, I can't tell you, when I was like in the voting booth and I looked down on the ballot, he said, I saw your name, but it was like I saw my name. You know, it was that kind of thing. Like, we've been there together. We know what it is, you know, we understand each other. So that's like, I think, very hopeful, and that's like kind of a spark. So, and then I think it's new leadership. It's new leadership. And there is a little spark in Crown Hill right now because some young families have just invested there. Some new old house nuts have invested there. So we're like, ooh. But they're excited to be in the neighborhood. And so that's what we're trying to do next weekend, is to have people share some energy and vision and maybe get excited to get more involved, you know.
Are there a single parent families in your neighborhood?
Single parent families? Many.
Many.
Yeah.
So how do you help the mothers, especially if they are running the families?
Well, a lot of times through the network center, that would be a specific challenge that was happening for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it could be that they needed specific social service.
Mm-hmm.
We would have to be aware of what services are out there,
Mm-hmm.
because we weren't service providers.
Mm-hmm.
We were like a network.
Yeah.
And so we would say, go down to the Denholm building and go see the people at Community Action Council.
Mm-hmm.
They'll help you get fuel assistance,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll help you sign up for food stamps, or they'll help you think about a voucher for childcare, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or go to Family Health, because they'll help you sign up for Mass Health. And we might even have a person that we would know was the go-to person, you know. So it was having a knowledge of where were the services, who, you know, who would be a go-to person for someone that would need something.
So in a way, you're a knowledge bank, resources you have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been talking in the class a lot about, you know, we read